On this episode of the Layover Live, our very own Katie Cook stops by to talk about the power of audio. Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 138 of the Layover Live, where we bring you the top article from the Layover each week. I'm Jason Swick, VP of Strategy and Insights, and joined today by Katie Cook. So, Katie, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jason. It's nice to be on the show again. Hey, by the way, that's a new title for you. That's exciting.
Yeah, new title, lots of changes, so check your inbox. There's more information about that. There's some exciting things that have been happening organizationally here at Simpleview, and so check that inbox, as I'm now moving from really DM, where I'll still be servicing that team, but I'm also moving now into the customer experience side of the house to help clients provide strategy and insights. So very, very excited. So more on that, but check that inbox. But, while we've got you here, Katie, we're talking about audio content, so I'm super excited this week. As, we've had recent episodes where we've got into creating engaging content through social media and through email marketing and video and UGC, email marketing, and everything in between. And these topics are certainly important, as DMOs may just now be starting to turn their paid media faucets back on, and our data is starting to show that. Now, one medium that we haven't talked about all of that much, but one that DMOs should certainly consider, is audio. Now, article of the week this week comes from Search Engine Watch and talks about how to use podcasting in your content marketing. And now may be a time to consider audio and take advantage of the incredible opportunities that it can bring. The reason being that it has a low barrier to entry and people can listen to it anytime, anywhere. Audio is also powerful and a timely medium and has recently become one of the top mainstream sources to consume content. In fact, more than 1/3 of the U.S. population has listened to a podcast in the last month. I mean, that's something like 100 million monthly listeners, which is really incredible to think about. But when we talk about the power of audio, it doesn't begin and end with podcasting. There are other ways to leverage audio as well, including advertising on sites like Spotify and Pandora, and even creating playlists and voice apps, which we'll get into shortly. But again, I've got Katie Cook here to talk about this. So Katie, let's just jump right into it. What are maybe the different types of audio that DMOs out there should be considering as we're talking about audio today?
Yeah, sure. There are a lot of different types of audio, but the four that we're going to talk about today specifically are advertising on audio platforms, music playlists, live streams of music performances, and also, of course, our favorite podcasts. So starting with the audio platforms, really, there's ways that you can do some awareness advertising on platforms like Pandora and Spotify, as there are really great ways to reach intended audiences. They both have really large user bases across, all demographics, so that allows advertisers like DMOs to target their intended audiences in a really nice, clever way. So through display, video units, audio spots, and custom promoted playlists, DMOs can run awareness campaigns with these ad partners in a really rich and an immersive platform. Another, way to get in front of these same platform users in a more organic way is just by DMOs, creating an account for their DMO on, say, a Spotify, and then building playlists of maybe local artists' songs. And that's really at no cost. And then those playlists can be embedded onto your website, into blog posts, and shared on social media and other channels. So they act as content. And then really, during this year of social distancing, we've seen DMOs, really quickly pivot and keep their audiences engaged through Facebook Live events and other streaming content. So, live music concerts is one of those focuses that really seems to get a lot of engagement and gives exposure to local musicians that really are underemployed right now. And then, of course, lastly, but certainly not least, are podcasts. Quite a few DMOs have created podcasts to really engage with their audience through storytelling, as well as use them to get the word out of their local partners.
Yeah, Katie, all really good stuff there, and thanks for explaining those types of audio content. Because when we think about those things, we often think about podcasts, but there's so many other ways to use it. We talked about the examples of advertising, and certainly even partners out there like the Google Marketing Platform if you're using a lot of those tools, even has ways to even handle audio right within the platform and place media there. So it's definitely something that's growing, and it's outside of just podcasting. But what are some really good client examples that maybe you have that you can share? Because I think it's one thing to understand the mediums, but I think it's another to be able to go out there and share examples and let people see what's out there to kind of inspire them to do those things. So what are some good client examples maybe that you can share of those taking advantage of audio and doing it well?
Yeah, I've come across a lot of really good examples, but I just thought I'd highlight a few of my favorites that I've come across recently. So some examples of DMOs that have created those playlists that I talked about. One of those is Travel Lane County. So Travel Lane County, which is the Eugene area of Oregon, they built a great road trip playlist on Spotify, and then embedded that into a blog post. So that blog post also features music videos from each of those musicians, and really is just a really engaging way to showcase their playlist. Another example is Explore Asheville. They built a custom music station using SoundCloud, actually, and that features several playlists. Also, Visit Austin has an entire Spotify account with multiple playlists that they often embed in blog posts. And then Austin actually has their Spotify account linked from the footer of their website, right alongside all of their social media accounts. So it's really easily found by website visitors too. And then, as I mentioned before, DMOs have really done a great job with live streaming events this year. Visit Lex was one that we've talked to. Discover Puerto Rico has done a great job. And then I want to do another shout out to Visit Austin because they've actually hosted multiple virtual concerts featuring local musicians, and then those live streams actually fundraised for some organizations that support the local musicians. So those were all really great examples. And then, of course, on the DMO podcasts, some of my favorites that I've come across are a really great winemaker series done by Visit Santa Barbara, also a Haunted Oregon series by Travel Oregon. So those were kind of two shorter series that they let lives on their website. And then Visit Savannah has an Anything But Ordinary podcast, and then Visit Bucks County has From the Locals podcast. So all really great examples, and we'll make sure to share these links to these examples in our episode description.
Yeah, Katie, those are all like really, really, really good examples. And if we think about others that are doing it out there, I'd love to see that they're taking different angles, right? It's not, just about, talking about, travel specifically as you and I think about, or you and I talk about on the podcast all the time, but it's taking these different angles. You mentioned Santa Barbara with the wine tour and Travel Oregon with some things that they're doing. It's thinking differently, and it's a good time to do that, right? With everything happening with the pandemic and people consuming content across various platforms in various different ways, it certainly makes a good case for audio. Now, I want to get into podcasts, though, because you and I are both podcast geeks. We talk about this stuff, right, all the time. I'm probably listening to some sort of podcast or audio piece of content on the way into work almost every single day, and I know you do the same. So let's dig into that specifically and maybe how you should approach them, right? And so, as we start to approach, I think you approach it really like any other piece of content out there or any other campaign that you might have out there, right? It starts with doing research, figuring out what content or topics that people want to talk about, then going out and creating that content. Once you put that content together, whether it's an advertising piece or it's a podcast, right? You start to then think about where that's going to be distributed, right? So first you need to optimize it for the channel that it's running on, whether that's through YouTube, right, or through some other channel. You then need to amplify and get that message out there. So maybe think about how that's going to be then promoted through social media. It's then a good idea to test it once you're doing that, and then measure success, rinse and repeat that cycle specifically. But maybe talk a little bit more about your approach and some insights that maybe you have about that.
Yeah, for sure. So, as the article of the week states, really the best way to think about podcasting in content marketing is to think of it as a content marketing channel, right? So that's a good way for marketers to think about podcasts. So I would say that, now that we're on episode 138 of the Layover, that you, me, and Grant have learned definitely some best practices for podcasting. And so we thought I'd just share kind of a few thoughts, maybe when you're considering creating a podcast. So I would say, as always, think about your audience and your strategy first. So, is podcasting the right medium for your audience, and will it accomplish what you're trying to achieve? Like that's, step one. And then, so, if the answer of that is yes, start thinking about your content plan. Like, what are your topics that you want to cover? Maybe who is the best person or people to talk about those topics? And really, like you said, make a schedule. It's really important to plan ahead. And then, of course, just as importantly is how are you going to get an audience? So how are you going to be promoting it? Where are you sharing it? Could you be encouraging your guests to be sharing it at the same time? Just really be thinking about that promotion. And then, is it going to be a video series or just audio? If it is a video series, where are those videos going to be housed? Are they going to be on your website? Are they going to be on YouTube? Just kind of be thinking about where those live, and then make sure that SEO is in place, really great descriptions, things like that. And then, on the tech side, you and I are obviously recording these just on, QuickTime players from your computer now that we're remote, but be thinking about maybe, if you're doing those in person, like what kind of tech is needed and for the editing side too. So we definitely encourage any of you listeners that are interested in getting kind of specific podcast questions answered to reach out to us, because we'd love to be able to answer those questions if you have anything more specific.
Yeah, really good stuff there, Katie. So, in looking at that, then, any other tips that you have maybe for destination marketers regarding podcasts, anything that, we've learned over time that you think could help in this endeavor?
Yeah, I would say if you have any choice at all, don't try to tackle this project solo. Try to find a team, even if it's, folks on your team, your colleagues that are just really passionate about something like this. Try to get some contributors, because it is a lot of work. Maybe who has a really great voice, who should be the voice of the podcast. Just like I said, don't try to operate solo if you can help it. There's 4 of us that work on this weekly show. We all wear a lot of other hats, so it's really important for all of us to kind of pitch in and help. But we all love it, so it doesn't feel like work often, so it's a great thing. But yeah, Jason, I guess because you've done way more of these than I have, any tips that you would share would be great too for, I think, our listeners.
Yeah, I like that. Flipping it back on me. Okay, yeah, for sure. Like I'm happy to share. I think, when I think about some tips, I think first and foremost is really clearly defining your why. Like, why are you doing this, right? Is it informational? Is it educational? I think that's really, really important, is understanding the why behind it so that you can properly target your audience. When I think about the Layover and what we did and why we started it, was really because it first started as really we were sharing lots of different articles and different information around the office. And we thought, wow, really, these are topics and these are articles, these are things that we think DMOs should benefit from as well. What's the best way to get it out there? And we started with email. We then got into podcasting and video podcasting. So I think starting with your why really helps. We're not serving to a giant audience either, right? We're serving to a small audience, which are destination marketers on a weekly basis. And that's okay, because we understand our why and what we're trying to accomplish. So I think that's first and foremost. Next, I think, is being consistent. I think that's something that's really important as well. You and I have both been to podcasts or even read blog content or whatever where things aren't consistent, right? Someone maybe starts out and does it on a weekly cadence or a monthly cadence, and they get 2 or 3 in there, and you're like so excited, and you're consumed by what's happening and you're a subscriber, and then they don't post for 2 months or 3 months. And that can be frustrating, I think, for the end user and kind of hurt your audience. So whatever cadence you decide to do, and there's no right or wrong, just be consistent with that. If it's weekly, do it weekly. If it's monthly, do it monthly. If it's quarterly, do it quarterly. That's fine. Just be consistent so your audience knows what to expect. And then lastly, I would say, is make it fun. I think that's important. I think there's so much dry content that's out there that's not engaging. Just be yourself. If you be yourself, you're going to have fun doing it. You're going to want to do it. And your personality is going to come across in doing it. And it doesn't need to be perfect, right? You and I, Katie, I think, and even with Grant, we'll be the first to tell you that we don't shoot to be perfect every week. We shoot to be consistent and to bring content that people want to listen to. And I think that's important. So again, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just have fun doing it. And then that delivers a good end user experience. So those would be the 3 things I think that I would share. So if you're going to put me on the spot.
Yeah, those are good tips.
Yeah, good stuff. So Katie, thanks for coming by. I think, again, audio is, a really important medium to consider. I think you shared some really good insights into the various things when we think about, audio content, whether that's through advertising, that's through podcasting. You shared live music events. I think the playlists, these are all really great ways for DMOs to be able to share. So thanks for stopping by and sharing those with us.
Yeah, it's great. Great to be on camera again.
Yeah, you bet. And thanks for tuning in, everyone, each and every week. If you're not subscribed, please do so now. We're also available, if we're talking about audio, on podcasts through Spotify and through iTunes. So subscribe there as well. So thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll see you next time, and have a great day.